Here we are. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here at Hallwalls and in the cinema for the solo exhibition of Edreys Wajed and his artwork that spans over 9 years and represents more than half a dozen of his creative types of expressions. So this Artist Talk is brought to you by Hallwalls and Eat Off Art. And this interview is actually reigniting the Eat Off Art podcast that we began during COVID. And we have some of our guests here that were on our podcast, and you can find it on YouTube. But if you want any information about our podcast or any future endeavors, you can always subscribe to our newsletter at our website, www.eatoffart.com. Edreys, hello. How are you today?
Hello.
Pleasure to have you today.
Pleasure to be here. And can I say I just want to say thank you to everybody who saw the promotion, saw the ask and the invite. And it's a high gratitude to have you here instead of talking to empty seats.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate time. We appreciate people's time.
Yes, we do. And we're going to get right into it. So, Edreys, most of us know that you are a wordsmith and that you choose your words very carefully. The title of your show is Diaphanous, which is defined as extreme delicacy of form and characterized by such fineness of texture as to permit seeing through. So in your words, please tell us about Diaphanous and what we should expect to see, experience, or take away from this solo exhibit.
Okay. First, let me say, I don't know what these questions are going to be.
It doesn't.
I didn't want to see them. Diaphanous. So diaphanous is a word that I've been holding on to for like years, probably since I was 13, 14 years old. I heard my dad say it once, describing something. And I just always held on to it, never knew when to really use it or apply it. But then when the show came about, the word just kept prompting. Like, I'm very obedient to like things coming to me, muses coming to me, whether it's something I hear or whether it's something I see, and I just kind of write it down. So why diaphanous? The word diaphanous, as Alexa described, is like delicate, right? To be able to see through something, right? Almost like this transparency. So I feel like when I'm doing my practice, one of the things that I kind of put first is my vulnerability, because vulnerability, people protect vulnerability by building walls, right? So because they don't want to be as vulnerable, they don't want people to see into their deepest thoughts, into their journals, into their imperfections. So the work that I do, whether it's public or otherwise, I'm always putting my most vulnerable self out there. So diaphanous is seeing through, right? It's like a veil, right? Or, what are those things that you used to put on, the coasters, they're like white and they're like really
Crystal? Doilies?
Thank you. Doilies. Thank you. Yeah. So like doilies, right? Like you can see through those things, but they still have a purpose. You can put something on top of it. So the diaphanous came from that. I just wanted to be vulnerable and expose myself to my deepest thoughts and some of my work that I had questions about. None of that work up there is something that I put out there and it's like, right? Well, no, so that's not true.
I was about to say, wait a second, because
that's not true. So,
I've heard you.
So, yeah, some of them I'm definitely superhero, hands on hips type stuff. But there are other pieces that I was more vulnerable about. And, John, in curating it, I just wanted to, it's a teamwork effort, like he sees things that I didn't see. And I'm just like, I just took my hands off like, man, whatever, dude, like whatever you see, that's the vulnerability part, not trying to control things. And then to break it down further, Phanous, it's basically Greek, but Phanous is light or lantern. And Dia is like can be determined as like, can be looked at as like distance or connect or point to or through. So like, what's the word? Diameter, right? Diameter, right? End to end, you can see through. Diagonal. What else? There's other diagonals.
Those are good
too.
though.
All right.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So anyway, it's seeing through light in the sense.
And what do you want people to take away from your show? Like, what is it that you want to evoke or provide to folks?
I'm a bad man. No. I want y'all to take that with you. And just like again, what I want you to really, really hold on to is just whatever you do too, like vulnerability. I think vulnerability is closely linked to humanity. And I'm all about more humanity, and I'm all about more empathy between us all. So that's what I want people to really take away from it.
Oh, that was nice. Okay, so you mentioned diameter and diagonal, and we see lines everywhere in your work, as John has already attested to and wrote a beautiful piece in the catalog. So please make sure you get your catalog. The write-up was amazing. But it highlights your lines, right? Mm-hmm. And you've always been a person that's worked with lines, and I've seen different variations of what that is. But where for you did the concept of lines come from? How did it evolve, or maybe how did it come full circle from where you initially started as an artist?
So basically, you know what? In brief, I can be long, but in brief, one of the things I remember most is I remember falling in love with like rough sketches. You know, like my dad would draw all the time. My mom would draw all the time. So growing up, I would see pieces of paper with like ideas on it, whether it was a shopping list, whether it was, you know, my mom happened to buy thread, or, you know, draw something out of a shirt that she was going to sew for me and Safana, or, you know, my dad drawing roller skaters. Like it was always this line like this that I was attracted to. That's what I can remember earliest. Then that translated into when I started to really like draw and things like of that nature, like, you know, just daydreaming and drawing. I was always afraid to color things. I was always afraid to fill it in. I was like, I just loved how it was raw. And I was like, I can't remake this loose end of this sketch. Like you can't redo that. Like I just always loved the rawness of it. And so eventually I just started to practice and hone in on line being the simplest element of art. Like people say, you know, I can't draw a straight line. And you know, people say all these sort of things, but without the start point of a pen hitting something, there's nothing left but a line to make after that. Like you have to do something after that.
Right.
Whether it's a curved line, an angular line, a straight line, whatever it is, that's where a line is. So it's always held my attention. And again, about that, I'm going to keep going back to vulnerability. Those 700 drawings particularly were all drawn just pen to paper, no pencil. I haven't used pencil in quite a long time. So as I was talking with John about it, he's like, did you sketch these? I'm like, no, this is right to paper. It's like, what about the mistakes? Like, once you put the ink on paper, what about, I'm like,
make it work.
That's a part of it for me.
That's right.
That's a part of it for me, is the figuring out what next. What do I do next? Because that's part of my philosophy in life. We make decisions, and then you have to make the best of whatever that choice is. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think that's it about line.
So, but if you
there's more too, but go ahead.
What's more?
No, go.
What?
Well, so line, I was also fascinated with line when I started to cut hair. So when I was 14, my mom bought me a pair of clippers and was like, you got to figure this out. Yes. I can't pay for your haircuts no more. And so you can imagine the amount of bad lines trying to figure out how to cut my own hair. But anyway, when you look at somebody, when you look at a person, when they come out of a barbershop or come out of a salon, right, whether it's long flowing hair, that's lines. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a gentleman's edge up, you know, whether
lines,
right? It's lines that
fresh
frame,
lines.
Right? It's lines that frame things. Like lines bring attention to things. That's what they do. And so through that, I use that as a tool to bring your attention to something.
So if you love the line so much and pen, why did you incorporate paint? What made you do that?
One of the things I say to myself nearly every day is do the things you fear and success will be yours. So I started to do the thing that I feared most, which was paint, which was to go over something that I spent a lot of time on and that I thought was like, oh, this is good. And then the possibility of ruining it. The possibilities of bringing it to ruin was also fascinating for me too. And then that just kind of loosened me up. It loosened me up in the practice of just like just make. So, and then I guess, I don't know what your next question is, but I guess paint also, or color also came into it because as I started to use music as my muse, I really started to see colors. Like a sound started to influence what I would pick up next, in order to make these pieces. And with that exploration just gave me the more confidence to know, again, I can use things in black and white. I can just use a framework, or I can load it up with color to make it have a different message too. So
for the folks that don't know about your Check Out My Melody series or your, how you listen to music as part of your practice, can you explain that a little bit for folks?
When you go up there, you will see some very colorful works, very wispy lines. Watch out. You'll see like what to you may look like a bunch of squiggly lines, right? That whole, my 4-year-old could do that, probably. But there's a reason to why it looks the way it looks for on my work. And I listen to music on repeat. Am I telling them a story like how we got here or no? We don't have time for that.
Just answer the question. Just explain the art.
Right, but sometimes there's backstory to some of it. Okay.
Explain your scores. How's that?
So the ones that have all these colors and things in them, and they look like scribbly lines, each one of them represents one song. So I take a song, I play that song on repeat, and I memorize the movements of the music. So, for example, if there's a horn, right? If there's a horn, I'll focus on every time the horn comes in, because mostly I'm listening to hip hop stuff, but I listen to jazz and class. I listen to all kinds of things. But whatever the movement of that instrument is, I just focus. I isolate that. I just literally have this ability to hyper focus and separate and comb through. So I'll listen to that. Once I see how that movement goes, if it goes, one of my favorite songs is They Reminisce Over You by Pete Rock and CL Smooth, right? It goes, right? Everybody knows. Well, it's ubiquitous. So I would focus on that, right? And so what does that look like? If with my finger was, it's almost like a conductor, right? A person who's, when they're conducting, right? So that's what it looks like through line. So even though it's not a straight line, there's still line in there. So I just go down this instrumentation, right? And just checking off drums. What do drums look like? What is this vocalist doing? What is the piano's doing? And so each layer has a color that speaks specifically to it. And I used to label them. I don't label them anymore though.
Yeah, no, you've been changing a lot.
I have.
You have been.
Supposed to evolve.
You are supposed to evolve, which comes to the next question about the diverse offering of art that you have upstairs. It looks like 6 different artists are actually exhibiting. How are you able to go from one style to another almost effortlessly? And it seems as if there's no thought to it. Like, how are you going, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do music. Oh, I'm going to do videos. Nope, I'm going to do this. How do you do that?
Well, one of the things I share many times is like just permission. permission to follow the muse. It's just permission. And that's the part I'm talking about with like, I don't know how these things are going to be received, but I can tell you how I feel when I do them. And they all have all the work has a fingerprint in it. And one of those fingerprints and the thread, metaphorically speaking, and literally it's the line. I'd never break from the line. You will find line in all of the work. It just looks a little different. So yeah, I mean, there's no box for me. I don't, like people say, oh, you're an artist. And I'm like, yeah, and a poet, and I kind of keep going on. And I do all those things because typically speaking, most people only can accept you as one thing. You know, you are this. And it's like, we can fall into those boxes. It's like, yeah, they said I'm that, so why am I going to do haikus? Mm-hmm. People just want to see me do art. Hey, Edreys, you used to rap, right? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I did used to rap, And I still rap. But so all of those things that make me who I am is just, that's what I'm going to do.
So with all those eyes and those thoughts around you and in the bubbles, how do you manage your self-doubt, if you have any, as an artist and a person, or how to tackle that judgment? I mean, you kind of talked about the vulnerability, following the line, doing what you're here for. But that seems like it could still be a gut punch or something like, well, damn, I've been doing this, Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Is there self-doubt? Well, I can answer that this way.
Okay, because I was about to help you.
I want to know what you're going to say.
I was going to say, I've been with you the last couple months working on this show. So.
Well, I never doubt who I am. That's number one. I don't doubt who I am. However, self-doubt that's usually a measure of my ability to pull this tool, right? And pull the right tool at the right time to do what's being asked. Mm. Like, that's what it's more like. So the self-doubt is like, I cure my self-doubt by looking at what I've done. That's what works for me, right? So when John's like, hey, we got this 50-foot wall, you could do something in there. Now, 2 months ago, that was a good idea, right?
But a couple days ago.
2 months ago, we talked about, that's a great idea. I'm like, yeah, man, we could do this. Yeah, I'd love to do the mural. When it came time for the show, I was like, oh, damn, like, what am I going to do? But again, I had to go back to what I know, which is I do have the ability to do the thing. So self-doubt for me is more, is the voice is getting smaller, the volume is getting lower, because I know who I am. However, I think I read self-doubt now less about doubt, but more about care. Like, I care enough to do good work when I'm called upon. Mm-hmm. So that's what the nervousness is, because I care enough, to do good work. So that's what it's more so.
And you do a lot of good work. So we've seen you on a lot of walls in Buffalo, Niagara County, Erie County. We've seen you on social media. We see you in the news. We see you working, we see you producing, we see you doing, and you still have the time to care about others and send them a message or receive a phone call or take the time to mentor someone. So with all that giving, all that working and producing, how do you show up for yourself? How do you give yourself grace?
The question is, how do I give myself grace?
Yeah, how do you show up for yourself with all of that when you're always giving to others? And you give a lot.
I don't have an answer for that. Maybe that's something I need to work on.
Yeah. Well, you take time for yourself. You make sure you have a routine and a ritual.
Oh, you know what? Yes. I am unapologetic with my nose.
Yes.
That's how I show up for myself.
Yes.
I'm unapologetic about my nose, and I'm also unapologetic about when people misunderstand me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care anymore because if you
Hello,
check
50.
well, I won't say I don't care anymore, but I care less.
Yes.
I'm beginning to care less because I figure at this point in my life, if people misunderstand me or see it in a particular way that was not meant, or whether it's something I said or did, I don't need to prove anything. Like, I feel like go ask somebody. Go ask somebody. Yeah. So don't bother me. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing when I'm doing the thing or whatever, and what my intentions are. My intentions are and have always been to do the least harm and to make the most impact.
Okay. Well, that's a wonderful segue into my next question.
Okay.
How do you maintain integrity and artistic vision in commissioned or paid work where someone else's ideas may not align with the ideas that you have for the project?
Well, one is I'm okay. Well, as an artist and as an entrepreneur and as a person who's been doing this and like made the choice to be an artist and all that comes along with it, and all the struggles, all the doubt, all the where are we going to, how are we going to eat, all these things, all the sacrifice. I have become comfortable with walking away from opportunities if they don't align with what I bring to the table.
Yep.
So that's how I do that. Right. And I mean,
I do.
Right. That's why
We've
you have this.
That's why several times.
So and there's like a salary, or there's a commission, or there's an honorarium. There's things attached to it. However, I'm going to say no because that's the integrity for me, right? And I don't lose any sleep over that kind of stuff. So my yes is an absolutely usually. Like my yeses, I try to make sure my yeses are absolutely, right? As opposed to because when you do the is, a lot of more ends come along with the journey. You know what I mean? And then you get too far into it, and you have to complete the thing you said you're going to do. So yeah, my integrity is just I make sure my yeses are absolute. I make sure my no's are unapologetic, and that's part of how I address integrity.
Interesting.
How's that?
That was good. That was pretty good. You did good. That was good. Okay, 2 more questions, and then we're gonna go to audience questions.
What about water? I don't have any water.
Do you want water?
You said we was gonna have water.
Well, do you want me to get you water? It's over there. I gotta get you water now too.
No. I'm just asking. You asking me questions.
Thank you. Here, sir.
Well, thank you.
I guess I should have had some down by your chair, but
thank you.
I can't reach that, but that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. When you are creating, because creativity is your neighbor because you live by it. Do you think about the legacy you're leaving through art, or are you just focusing on creating it? Because you're leaving a lot of marks everywhere.
Do I focus on the legacy?
Do you focus on leaving the legacy?
Leaving the legacy?
Or are you just simply being you, creating, expressing, and doing what comes to you?
That's easy then. I'm doing what comes to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing what comes to me because that comes before the legacy part. That's it. The more that you do and the more artifacts that you leave behind.
Yes, the evidence.
The evidence does the legacy talk for you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I do what comes to me. And yeah, that's part of that whole self-care piece too. Like I'm just kind of obedient to the things that come to me, and I explore them, and I put them out there, and who they speak to is who they speak to. And yeah, I don't think about it like that, but yeah, so the legacy is the work left behind. And so as you're moving forward, there's just,
A trail.
there's the trail. Yeah,
All right.
there's a map behind it,
Okay.
which I don't look back on often.
You really don't. And you don't turn back either. So that's a good thing.
I do not.
I admire that.
I don't want to.
You don't want to. No, I get it. All right. So, last question from me. What advice or wisdom would you give to other inspiring artists about maintaining an art practice or building their portfolio to be able to eat off art?
Are there any practicing artists in here?
Yes.
I know there's some.
There are a lot.
There's a lot of professionals too.
And the young ones.
My advice. So who am I giving advice to? Aspiring artists? You said?
I said aspiring.
Okay.
Someone who's not eating off art now.
You may never eat off art.
Okay. So go with that.
Yeah, you may never eat off art, but yeah, you just gotta, to me, I guess my little bit of advice would just be willing to explore the self first. Like, that's what it really is. You're going inside, you're going inside to pull something out and put it on paper, a wall, photography, music, whatever it is, there's something that's in you that must come out some sort of way. I think that if you just begin to create a practice of just making sure that you have some sort of journal, some sort of way to document your journey, so that way you can look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever, and you can see when you started, how far you've come, that kind of thing. So I think it's just building the practice of whatever it is that you're interested in and not waiting for somebody to push the button for you. We wait for validation. We wait for validation from other people sometimes, and you don't necessarily need to do that. And to me, I mean, as a novice, people are, if we're talking about novice and entry level aspiring artists, the entry point is very low as far as affordability, in my opinion. You don't need anything more than a pencil and something to write
paper.
on.
That's it.
Like, that's the entry point.
Right.
Even more than that, you can go outside and get dirt and put that on paper or put that on concrete, like whatever, it doesn't matter. Just go make.
Yeah.
Right. And then just have the commitment of doing that practice over and over. And if you decide at some point that you want to declare yourself as an artist, then you start to learn that there are other things that come along with that declaration, right? There are other levels of practice that come along with that declaration. And then you start to maybe have conversations with other artists that may be doing what you're doing, getting out, going out to, museums and galleries. And I mean, today we had way more tools than we did, growing up. Like, you don't even have to leave the house to look up how to do art now. Just
Not
like,
at all.
or what does art mean or whatever.
We had encyclopedias.
Yeah. A through Z
Actual
encyclopedias. So yeah, that's my roundabout way of just encouraging aspiring artists, man. It starts with you. It starts with you. It's a self-investigation, and you don't need anybody's permission to investigate the self.
That was good.
So how we doing? That was really your last question?
That was my last question. Are there any questions? There's one right here. Can you project, or do you need a microphone?
Just project.
Yes, project.
And we'll repeat the question.
Okay. You look like you're ready to dance. We got music upstairs.
I've been standing there, not as young as I used to be. But it's always a pleasure to see you. I was there when you were at the alley at Hurdle, and I met you there, and also the wall, the Freedom Wall, and so. I wasn't going to come out tonight, but I had to hear you.
Thank you.
And just wanted to know, we all get training somewhere. And I wanted to know, how did that begin for you? And what institutions and individuals have the most impact and continue to impact what you do?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what institutes or practices of that nature that continue to kind of influence me is kind of the question, right?
Yeah.
And
so
what
first, you had when you were.
Yeah. So what the question was, like, what kind of things like sort of influenced me, whether it's, starting at home or institutions or what have you. So there's several things, but one is that, at home, it started at home. That's first and foremost. And I don't know if we learn through imitation. We learn how to talk through imitation as babies. We learn how to walk through imitation. We learn how to hold a fork, feed ourselves as babies through imitation, right? And so just through imitation, that was already a part of the practice of being a Wajed in the Wajed house, right? There's pencils, there's papers, there's crayons. There's to do something with those things. Entertain yourself. So that's number one. Then secondly, when I got to school, middle school, and then junior high, I had an art teacher who was phenomenal. I thought she was always being hard on me, but she saw something in me that, the other people. So she would give me these really rigorous projects and put me in a room by myself. It was like, Edreys, you go do them. I'm like, all my friends are out at the desk having fun, and I'm in the room by myself. Like, man, what I do now? You know what I'm saying? Like, figure out this airbrush machine. This is before you told me, like, where's the manual? I got to figure this stuff out. So part of it was, that's two things, right? So parenting. Secondly, a teacher that saw something special in me. And
shout out to the art teachers in the room.
Word. See you, Rose. Lynch. We got some heavy hitting teachers in this room too, man. They are, man. Also then that, and then, Buffalo State was my undergrad, and there, I finished there in graphic design. I didn't really get a whole bunch of training there in drawing per se, but it was a way for me to combine graphic design and computers, obviously, with what I was doing innately, which was drawing. Then that led into a lot of freelance work, because I never had a job as a graphic designer, couldn't find work. And so I just used that as my freelance in order for me to just make a little money on the side doing logos and flyers and posters and blah, blah, blahs. So that kind of honed my skill too. Then entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship was something that Alexa and I have always been into. So I'm always, what tools do I have? So I use those tools and sharpen those. And then I just recently went back to school to get my MFA at UB. And I graduated in 2022. Yeah. So I think most recently that experience going from my MFA was what really, really just you see those Sweet 16, those wealthy Sweet 16 documents where they pull up a car and there's a bow on it.
Yes.
like my MFA was like that. Like, they put a bow on the car for me. I was okay, now I know how to express who I am, and I just jumped in that vehicle. So that's the vehicle I'm sitting in right now. It's like all of it made sense, because I thought MFA was going to be like something else. Learning about other people and all these things, which it was, but that right there was the most intensive self-investigation process ever. It was all about Edreys Wajed. Like, who are you? Why are you? And how can you be more? Like, that's what I got from it. Yeah. That's what I got. So,
and it's also about relationships too. As entrepreneurs, we've understood that having specific relationships, meeting people, being aligned with people, coming to networking events, coming to Hallwalls, Buffalo AKG, the Birchfield Penny Arts Center, the small galleries, Buffalo Art Studio, El Museo, and meeting people and communicating and seeing what's out there and what opportunities are out there are also something that's inspirational, something that can assist you, with your artwork and moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other question?
Any other questions?
There's one there and then one over there,
then
Jim.
two.
Yep.
Okay.
your self worth to your art and like to your like let's say like your successful things that you've done, within your art. Do you equate that to your self worth, or do you separate it?
So the question, if I hearing it correctly, if I can give it back, is do I equate my self-worth with like the accomplishments?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a great question. That's a great question because oddly enough, who I am as Edreys to me has very little to do with what everybody else sees as successful for me. You know what I'm saying? So, like, whatever the project is that I'm working on or whatever I'm doing, my level of my checkbox for success is start, check, finish, check. That's it for me. You know what I mean? So I don't stop to gather and look at like, yeah, oh, look at what I've done and this and that, because I still have a lot of self-work that I do. So the short of that is no, I don't feel that my self-worth is connected to the accomplishments of what I do as an artist at all. Like I deal with.
You still do dishes. You still take out the garbage. You still do yard work.
Still do.
You still fuss at me and the boys.
I still cry and still wonder what am I doing. I still wonder why am I here. I still wonder all those things. I still wonder, do people even see me? I still wonder all those things. Even though there are things, there's evidence out there that disprove whatever those questions I have for myself. However, as I'm saying it, I'm not saying I don't value myself. I value myself very highly. I value myself very highly as a very kind, compassionate, and empathetic human being. That's who I know I am without question. So if we talk about value, there is no value that can touch that of the human being that I believe that I am and I'm supposed to be in this world. There's no value on that. It's invaluable. You know what I'm saying? But some bread would be nice. And then Jim had a question. Who else? Who? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
Like you said, you had like, as humans, we all have those like foodie like questions and insecurities. But what is the most significant thing? What is the most significant gap that art fills as a human?
What is the question was what is the most significant gap that art filled for me?
Interesting.
This is a great question. By the way, this is coming from an artist who one would probably say is an aspiring artist. However, she is an artist. Almost 16, but the work that she does is absolutely phenomenal. When she sends it to me, I'll send back like all caps, like wow. In all sincerity. Really. So the gap that it fills, that's a great question. Here's the thing though. I think that if I didn't create art, then there would be the gap. So there is no gap.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's if I didn't do it and I wasn't obedient to the calling of being the artist, then that's where the gap would be. If you ask yourself, so where's the gap? The gap is I ain't making art, right? So that's for me personally, but the gap that it fills outwardly is that it fulfills other people's muses. It communicates with other people. Like that's the gap that it fills. Like it, whether somebody dislikes something or if somebody falls in love with something that I make, that's the gap. And that's all about just communication, really. Jim,
last question.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines. You talked several times, you mentioned honoring the muse, honoring the voice, and being true to that with your art and really using that as your compass head, right?
yes.
And you also also talked about, growing up, we learn by imitation, and we grow up by imitation. So at what point in your development did you learn to trust that muse and trust that voice as you kind of formed your own identity as a person, which is also an identity as an artist? So how did that evolve over time, to where you could trust it and trust your instincts? Because I think that's kind of a common human thing.
So at what point was I able to really trust the instinct of the, whatever you want to call it, the muse, the spirit that's kind of leading me as an artist? At what point? I've always nipped at it, and I've always pulled at the thread. Always. I've always done it. I would say within the past 4 or 5 years, where I really tailor cut the suit, right? Made sure it was there, 42 regular, 33 waist, cut my pin, right? Like in the past 5 years or so, that's when it really felt like, okay, all in, this is who I am. I don't necessarily have an example of what I want to aspire to be, so I have to be that thing as it's evolving in real time. So what you see and what you'll see upstairs is those poke arounds. That's what you'll see. You'll see the many expressions of the times where that's over the past 9 years. That's 9 years of work up there, up until the earliest piece, which is the mural, which was pretty much Tuesday or Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? So it's as old as 9 years old to as fresh as Tuesday.
That's the bar. That's bars right there.
So I've always pulled at it, but it's just now in the past 4 or 5 years, where again, one of my strong suits about my character is I hold true to what I say I'm going to do. My commitment, my promise to whomever. That's what I hold on to. And so that allows me to stay obedient. So somebody asked me recently, it's like, what inspires you? And I was like, it's less about an inspiration for me and more about just commitment to what I said I was going to do. It's just more so commitment, man, standing firm, right? And taking all that comes with it. Taking all, and I have nobody to blame. That's the other piece. I have nobody to blame because nobody made me do anything. However, whatever you want to call source, universe, whatever, that's what I'm obedient to, right? I guess I'll finish with this is like, one of the things I say to myself all the time is I have this mantra that I say every morning. And you heard the first part already. Do the things you fear, success will be yours. For all things will be provided if only you listen. Many people wish to be on the road towards success. Meanwhile, you are on a successful road. And basically that's like, I'm not looking for, like we drive on this road and we're looking for a success and passion road, right? We're looking for it. But you never see the road that you're on. You're already on a successful road. You don't need to be looking for it. Like you're on it based off of the things that you're doing, the things that you're committed to, So that's where I am. And so you'll see a portion of that journey in the show,
Wow. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Edreys. I'm sure you hear the Pied Piper upstairs.
Yes.
So our DJ is DJ Cutler. Of course, we always bring music. There's some appetizers by Buffalo Plant Burger. Remember, the show goes until October 31st. I'm not sure how much work you're going to be able to see, so come back and really take a chance to take it all in. And please save the date for December 5th. Eat Off Art is actually going to be having a relaunch in our new studio at the Tri-Main. So hopefully you'll sign up for the newsletter so you can get that invitation.
And again, I'm going to say thank you. I'm really going to say thank you because your time is very valuable. And, hopefully I'll see you all up there. I'll get around and say hey to everybody. I just really appreciate you all coming out. And I want to shout out the Hallwalls staff again.
Yes, John, the staff, Kate,
John and
everyone,
staff.
John,
Kate,
Ed.
Parrish, Ed.
Parrish.
Everybody here. Sound. I
Yeah.
didn't meet who was in the sound booth, but and for having us here tonight. So
Yeah.
let's go have some fun, man.
Yes.
And no apologies when you got to bounce. You bounce when you leave.
Yeah, please.
You bounce when you leave. Thank you, y'all. Peace.